Hello and welcome to People Keep Dying, the podcast where we talk about how people keep dying. I'm your host, Stephanie.
And I'm Angela.
Okay, so we're going to talk today about a mysterious death slash possible murder, but most likely not a murder. But a tip did come in, and we're gonna set the mood. We're gonna set the mood. Okay. So, on July 2nd, 1951, a landlady named Pansy Carpenter in St. Petersburg, Florida, woke up at 5 a.m. to the smell of smoke. Assuming that it was just the water pump in the garage overheating, she got out of bed, turned off the pump, and just went back to bed to go to sleep.
Never good.
She awoke a few hours later.
Wait, does she have a gun? Does she have a shotgun?
Nope.
Because she lives in Florida. Don't you need one?
I don't know if that's a requirement to live there. Do you?
I think you do. There's alligators.
Do you get when you turn 16, do they give you like your driver's license and a gun?
I mean, not in California, but in Florida, I just assume that like as soon as you're born, you just get a gun.
Probably.
I think a golden gun for alligators.
I have no idea. Wouldn't know. There weren't any articles that talked about Pansy having a gun.
Okay.
But I mean, it was 1955. Maybe did everybody have guns back in 1955?
I don't know if women had any rights back then. I mean, they did, but
maybe it was early women's rights. Okay, so she was woken again a few hours later by the doorbell ringing. It was Western Union here, with a telegram for one of her tenants. So she takes the telegram and she wanders up the stairs to deliver the telegram to one of her tenants. She knocks on the door and nobody answers. So she knocks again. Nobody answers. She puts her hand on the doorknob, which I thought that was really strange because if you knock on the door and nobody answers, and then why would you try to turn the doorknob? Like, are you trying to open up that door? Did people not lock their doors back in like the 1950s?
They didn't.
And what was she going to do? Like walk in, put the telegram down,
and be like, I'm your landlady, I can do whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah, and then like walk out. But anyways, she puts her hand on the doorknob and found it to be unusually hot.
Oh.
So she goes outside, she puts her hand on the doorknob and finds it unusually hot. And so she tried to turn it. She couldn't. The door was locked. So she goes outside and she tries to find some carpenters to help. And eventually her and these dudes, they like force the door open. And once they get inside and they discover what was inside, they immediately call the police.
Is it going to be is this like one of those articles, like what they discovered next will shock you?
Will shock you. So the apartment belonged to Mary Reeser, who was born in 1984 in Columbia, Pennsylvania. She later married a Dr. Richard Reeser, and they had one son together who was also named Richard, and he also became a doctor later on in life. Mm-hmm. And that's all that is known about Mary Reeser's life, because she
wasn't important.
She wasn't important until she died. Yeah. And then after her death, she became a phenomenon. So, when the police arrived, the apartment was still very warm, and they discovered the cremated remains of 67-year-old Mary Reeser, or at least what was left of her.
On the couch?
No.
Oh.
On the middle of the floor, what remained was a foot with a slipper still attached.
I totally know this story. I love it.
A portion of her backbone, and a shrunken skull said to be the size of a teacup. Early reports at the time said that her body had been disintegrated by a blaze of white-hot intensity. Mm-hmm. Immediately, the police thought that it was strange. They were baffled by the fact that Reeser's body was essentially cremated. And what's odd about that is that the rest of the apartment was virtually intact and unaffected by the fire that clearly had gone ablaze in this apartment.
So the devil came out from underground and grabbed her and then shoved her into a volcano.
Yeah, took her by the one leg and left the other foot.
Only volcano, a little bit of lava, and then left it. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, there were a couple plastic objects that were a little soft and partially melty around the ashes, but nothing. It wasn't burnt. It wasn't fully melted. Just a little soft, a little warm. The rug where the remains were found had a small scorch mark on it. And the chair and the end table in the middle of the scorch mark were upright. So she burned to death, but the chair and the table were
Pristine.
pristine. We're still there.
Yeah.
With the local police department being baffled, the police chief, J.R. Reisher, called in the FBI. And none other than Mr. J. Edgar Hoover took over the case.
Yes.
Hoover sent a team of FBI investigators and a physical anthropologist named Wilton Krogman to the apartment to get some answers. And after weeks of investigating, the FBI originally declared that Reeser was a victim of spontaneous human combustion.
Yes.
However, later stated that she likely died to what is known as the wick effect after she had fallen asleep while smoking and set fire to her super flammable nightgown. Because we're talking about the 50s, everything was made out of rayon, everything was fucking
Super flammable. And hairspray.
Everything was going up in flames. Because we were just like, people were just developing plasticky shit back then.
Yeah,
it was
that's
just
why
on the
it was
rise.
okay to like imagine how much cancer.
Oh, there was so much
So
cancer.
much cancer.
I mean, that's why I'm certain that's why people are getting so much cancer now. And then I don't necessarily think that it's like cancer didn't exist before, because I just always felt like I
think it just died before.
I do believe that cancer existed before, but people didn't know
What it was.
that it was cancer.
Yeah.
So they were calling it something else.
And then it just died.
But I feel like now we're ramping up the environmental cancers because we're living longer. Like, the cancer cells, I just feel, are being mutated now because I remember, didn't they talk about this on something recently? I may have read something about this recently where they were saying that, like, the reason why cancer is becoming more prominent now is just because our bodies are living longer.
Yeah.
And so we just have to figure out, like, cancer cells are something that we're born with, or something like that. And then it just, like, there's a chance for it to mutate.
So
like,
we're all going to die of cancer.
we all have the potential to have cancer.
Yes.
And your environmental factors all sort of,
What I wonder, it's such an interesting way to go, spontaneous combustion.
I
But
mean,
also awful, burning for 3 to 4 hours. Maybe.
she didn't burn.
It was instant.
They don't really know how long she burned,
because her internal temperature had to have gone fucking crazy.
because she, like, Pansy, the landlady, she woke up at 5 a.m. to the smell of smoke.
Yes.
Now, some of the stuff that they found in the apartment, there was an alarm clock or a clock that had shut down because it melted at a certain time. And I saw 2 different reports for this. So
Yes.
one time said 2:37 a.m.
Uh-huh.
And then the other time was 4:20. Now, I sort of felt like 4:20 was very specific and very, like, that's something the internet threw in there.
And yeah.
Just to be like, oh, you know how I'm going to make the story more fascinating? Because after I saw 2:37, which I believe was either on the Wikipedia or, like, one of the articles off the wiki, other articles I found all said 4:20. And I was just like, you guys are
fucking making, yeah.
So it's possible that it happened at 4 a.m. or around 4 a.m. But they don't really know, because there was only one witness, which was the landlady, to smell. So if it had burned for hours, they're like, you would think that more people would smell burning body or just burning anything.
And, like, a body has so much fat on it, you would think that she would have.
Yes. Yeah. So the body fat is basically how the wick effect, how they assumed that it was the wick, or they determined rather
candle.
that it was the wick effect. So human combustion is when a person bursts into flame from a chemical reaction in their body without any apparent ignition of an external heat source, though there have been accounts of alleged human combustion since 1663. Not all scientists are convinced that it's real, which, I mean, how many, I should have looked this up, but how many human combustion, like, have there been for the last 500 years?
12.
People are like, nah, it's not real. Like, nah, it can't happen. The wick effect, on the other hand, is the idea that the body has enough fat and other flammable substances that could cause a body to stay alight if it is set flame. So if someone sets you on fire, the wick effect will basically mean that your body has enough fat to keep the fire burning.
But you would assume that, like, if
Like
you're
a
set on
candle.
fire, you'd, like, run around in circles. Like, your body, unless
I
she was
mean,
already dead.
It really sort of depends, right? Like, yeah, a lot of people do run around, but
Or maybe she was already dead.
Maybe she already
Someone,
died.
like, shoved, like, a stake through her head, like a candle, and then lit it, and then...
yeah. I mean, who knows? Who knows? We'll get to that. So, both the police chief and the physical anthropologist disagreed with the FBI that it was a spontaneous combustion, and they also disagreed with the wick effect. With Krogman, the anthropologist, stating, "I find it hard to believe that a human body, once ignited, will literally consume itself, burn itself out, as does a candle wick, gutting in the last residual pool of melted wax." So while it's true that human fatty tissue is highly combustible, and even more so in heavier people,
Yes.
Mary Reeser only weighed 170 pounds.
Oh, so she wasn't even really that big.
No, arguably she would not have had enough fat to burn herself up the way that she did. So while the FBI's explanation had a certain logic to it, it only provided a partial explanation, as certain anomalies still remained. For instance, there was a pile of newspaper stacked next to the chair that remained completely unscorched. I mean, I can understand if possibly the chair didn't catch on fire, but paper, you can't tell me that the paper next to her didn't, like...
It was already wet.
Yeah.
From humidity.
So, there was a pile of newspapers stacked to Reeser's chair that remained completely unscorched. Krogman put forward the idea that Reeser was murdered at another location and then attempted to incinerate her body with crematorium equipment, then transported the results of the partial cremation back to the apartment, and then used portable heating generation equipment to add the finishing touches, such as the heated buckled plastic objects and the warm doorknob. But then it's just sort of like...
That's so much work. You could just literally just cremate her body and she just disappeared. And that's it.
Why are you... Who's going to try to, like, warm the doorknob?
Yeah, you don't think of that. Like,
Because,
so
like,
much. And then melting
you
the
would
alarm
need-
clock.
You'd need to melt the alarm clock.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was a little bit more as well. So, there was, like, a ring of soot around the roof around the ceiling of the apartment. And everything that was above this line of soot was melted, which was a couple electrical sockets, but the ones below it were completely intact.
Oh.
The switches were completely intact. So it was just like, why did it melt everything? It must have been something, in my mind, it must have been something that exploded.
Yeah.
And then raised to the roof, and then just stayed at the roof and melted everything at the roof and then dissipated.
So she's a devil.
Not necessarily that she's a devil, it's just like, it must have just been something that just like shot up and didn't shoot out.
But she lives in an apartment, so where would it have shot up from?
I don't know.
That's crazy.
That's crazy because there's really nothing on the floor.
Except the foot?
Except for the foot, and in terms of markings, there was just a not that large of a scorch mark on the rug. So it's not like it shot up from the rug. So the idea that it was like, she was murdered somewhere else and then transported back, but like, how? How would you have like...
It's so much thought. Like this kind of person, whoever, if they said they did what these, like the FBI said they did, this, like they got away with, guy's a fucking genius. Or girl, is a fucking genius.
Yeah. So the other part that really kind of baffled me was the head. Mm-hmm. So because the head it shrunk. And so Krogman, again, stated, the head is not complete in ordinary burning cases. Certainly it does not shrivel or symmetrically reduce to a smaller size. In presence of heat sufficient to destroy soft tissue, the skull would literally explode in many pieces. I've never known any exception to this rule. And all I could think is like, how do you get the skull to shrink? Or was that even her skull at all?
Well, you can shrink skulls because isn't that like that tribe in Africa or something
where
they get
their shrunken heads and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, how would they do that?
I don't know.
And then I was thinking, Well, no, because even like, because it would have to be a combustion for her to like explode and set up. So there must have been a combustion at some point. I mean, it's possible that like maybe it wasn't even her head.
Is the foot hers? They know for sure the foot is hers.
They don't know the foot's hers. Like they didn't do DNA testing back in
Yeah, that's
1952.
what I mean. So I'm like, what if it wasn't her foot? Maybe she's actually on the lam.
I mean, they just found a foot and they found a piece of a backbone and then they found some tiny little skull and it's just
assumed it was her.
Yeah,
It could just be like a voodoo magic thing that maybe no one's dead. Maybe that foot had already been dead for a long time.
Possibly. So her death certificate states accidental fire by an unknown origin. That's how it was officially stated. The government, because the police department, while they wanted to sort of speed up the process. So I guess what they wrote down on the death certificate, they filled out the death certificate just so that they would be able to have the funeral for the son, and then they never went back and like edited it, and then apparently. Krogman's like research or anything like that, like it was like 10 years before he was allowed to talk about what had happened or had released anything. And so there's a little bit of suspiciousness because I'm like a conspiracy like
yes.
Not that like any article that I read sort of like linked towards it, but it's just sort of like it's weird to me that
maybe that's how aliens die.
Maybe.
I mean, that's actually the alien skull, and that's how they die. And then they just have really long lives, and that's why we haven't seen a lot of them yet.
There was another thing that I had found that possibly, I mean, to me, it just sort of seems like kids being little shitty kids. But a letter was sent to the police department to the chief of detectives, but chief is spelled Cheif.
Oh.
And then detectives is spelled Detectiffs. Detectives.
Wow.
Which in my mind is like, these are kids.
Yeah,
like,
for sure, little kids.
So they received a letter that just stated, a ball of fire came in through an open window and hit her. I seen it happen.
But the shrunken head still isn't explained with that.
Dan,
what if
like,
that's true, though? Maybe that's how aliens die.
A ball of fire came in through the window and hit her. I
Like a
seen
meteor?
it happen.
A meteor. She got meteor striked.
Yeah, but you would see the meteor.
And on top of that, like the rest of the apartment
And
would
then
be
the
ruined.
force from a meteor coming in, like for the odds of a meteor coming
Through the window.
and landing in her window is so
Perfectly.
bar none. But for it to come and land the window and the force not doing any sort of damage to a floor
No.
or anything.
Like avoided everything and
Yeah.
just hit just her body and shrunk her head and then chop off her foot.
Yeah, then chop off
Just
her
left
foot.
her foot alone.
I'm a little bit on the, like, it's possible that she was murdered somewhere else, was cremated somewhere else, and then brought back and just dumped on the floor. But it doesn't explain anything else. And then I also don't really know what portable heat generating equipment would be.
I mean, they
then-
might have had like those portable gas campfire thingies.
Yeah, but I mean,
Heaters. Did they have space heaters back then?
possibly. But wouldn't those still have been there? What do
They
you think
took 'em-
that?
they took
what do
'em
you think
out.
that dude did? Just like sat around for a couple of hours, heating everything up.
Yeah,
and then just
jump
like,
out the
and then
window
just
because you
snuck
can't
out.
leave through the front door. So jump out the window, and I think it's an alien.
There was no breaking or entering. No signs of breaking or entering.
Well, the
and
window was
no,
open.
No sign. Well, I mean,
Was the window open?
we don't know if the window was open. It wasn't.
How would the meteor get in if the window's not open?
Exactly.
Wasn't
exactly.
allowed in.
So yeah, that is the story of Mary Reeser, whose murder is still a mystery, and
She's an alien.
People tend to like to talk about her a lot.
Yeah. Okay, so my story this week is very short because I didn't realize what little information I would have on this.
Hey, I had barely any information on my girl. Her Wikipedia page is literally like 3 paragraphs. And they're not
Yeah.
even paragraphs, they're like 6 lines total.
And this is about the same. So
You fill it in, we fill it in with
fill it
our
in with
banter.
chatter. So This is about the Champawat Tiger, who is supposed to be the most dangerous tigress in history, which was sort of debunked because I think they found another tiger that killed 700 people, but they don't know anything about that one. So this
how do
is,
you know if a tiger has killed 700 people?
I don't even know because they had numbers for this tigress, by the way, because
Oh,
female.
she's a bad bitch.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure how they got even close to what the numbers say. It's crazy.
I mean, you must have, like, were you just watching her? Like, was there one tiger in the area, and any time that there was some sort of mauling death, you blamed it on that tiger?
because like tigers usually don't, I don't think, attack a lot of people because they're not prey. I think antelope might taste better than we do.
I mean, people
They're
are
pretty fatty.
Listen, I'm not saying that the tiger will go after the humans, but humans were fucking dumb. So if those humans wandered off into Tigerland and started toying with that tiger, bitch can get it.
But this tiger goes into the village and steals you out of your home sometimes. So
Bitch can get it.
this was a man-eating Bengal tigress responsible for an estimate 436 people in the Nepal and Kumaon area of India. And I did not write phonetically for anything, so I'm going to say
fine.
everything wrong. All right. People were ambushed in the jungle dozens of times. But I think like the thing is like back then, you just go into the jungle because that's where all the food and resources are. You didn't really have a choice in like early 1900s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was before they became cities, so we had to clear out the jungle.
And this is like in India too, so it's probably even more so like that way.
Yeah.
And the attacks were so frequent and bloody that people started believing it was demons and a punishment from the gods.
So, people
I mean, everyone's really
people went
religious.
off, yes, and I do believe it is back in the 1901, but they went out into the forest and then got attacked, and then the people thought that demons were in the forest.
Yes,
Okay.
because it's the devil. Like I've said earlier with your story, it's the devil. It's
the
always
devil.
the devil. It's who you always, blame when something goes wrong. 'Cause
It's the devil.
Yeah. It's
The
not
devil made
nature,
No.
which they did later discover it was probably nature.
It's not, human failure.
No. And it was. Okay, so it was later discovered to be the tigress had been previously shot by a hunter. And while she escaped, the bullet broke two of her fangs. And unable to catch her normal prey, she turned to humans for a source of food because humans are easier to kill than antelopes or whatever else they ate.
Probably a lot slower, I would imagine.
A lot slower, a lot softer. So she began her reign in a Rupal village in Nepal around 1903, and hunters were sent in to kill her, but she evaded all of them. At this point, she had killed around 200 people.
No, how how do you know that one tiger killed 200 people?
I don't think tigers are really known to like kill a lot. Like they were known to be man killers, but maybe she was very distinctive looking. I couldn't find a picture
But
of
does
her.
it make more sense that it was like a tribe and 200 people in a small
in a small village?
in a small village is, I mean, how big is the village? I can't imagine the village would even have 200 people.
I think like
Over exaggeration.
It's probably a lot.
This story is fake news, Angela.
I'm pretty sure there were more than 200 people in the village. And then when you find like this body that's been torn apart by like teeth, you're like, that's probably a tiger.
See, when I hear village, I think like the 1700s.
Oh,
you know what I
no.
mean? Like
Yeah, this is
that's where
1900s.
when my brain hears a village, it's just like
And India's
20
pretty
people.
overpopulated too. I think
Hanging out by a
villages
river.
probably had like 10,000 people, I assume.
Okay, well maybe 200
And
people.
they had an army, so it sounded like they had a lot of people in the village.
I feel like it sort of sounds like she wasn't killing the humans for the food.
Play.
It may be possibly play. It could also be like they were going into an area where they were protecting. You know what I mean? Like humans were off doing shitty human things.
But animals are also dicks.
Animals are just gonna animal, and
Yeah.
humans are bigger dicks than animals are.
Yeah, and humans are also gonna human though, so you
Yeah.
can't. Yeah.
So I don't blame this
It's
girl.
a dick. It's a dick. It's a dick like contest, you know, just whose dick is bigger. But anyways, the Nepalese army was called, and despite failing to kill her, they were able to force her out of their territory into the Kuman region, which is where she ended up killing the rest of the people. So she continued to feed her bloodthirst and killed another 234 people in the Kuman area. Desperate to see an end to the blood, they called upon the then famous hunter, Colonel James Corbett, who was British.
So India calls in
A big time hunter to kill a tiger who's eating and killing people. So back in those days,
I hope this guy gets eaten.
no. So back in those days, hunters weren't all just dickbags who just want to assert their dominance and assure themselves that they can, just kill animals. Like hunters back then would either do it to protect the village or to kill and eat the animals.
Yeah, when you kill hunters back in the day, if you killed an animal, you honored that animal by using all of its parts.
Yeah.
You weren't you weren't trophy hunting.
Yeah.
You know what? That's a lie. People probably were trophy hunting.
They still were back then as well.
Back then.
Yes.
But it wasn't something that I would say like a hunter would do. I believe that they were using up all of the parts.
Yeah. Or you're trying to protect a village, which is what...
Protect or sustain.
Yes. So the tigers were known killers at that time, so tiger hunters saved hundreds of lives. So there were tiger hunters, but he was the top of his game.
How many people do you think were selling rocks that repelled tigers? Homer Simpson would have made.
Like, this is a true entrepreneur here. So maybe you would have made a lot of money that day, or you would have been cast as a witch and then burned at the stake.
Probably.
Yeah.
As a woman.
As a witch, yeah, you're definitely. So Colonel James agreed upon two conditions. One, that the government rewards be canceled, and the other, that the special shikaris and the regulars from Almora be withdrawn. My reason for making these conditions need no explanation, for I'm sure all sportsmen share my aversion for being classed as a reward hunter and are as anxious as I am to avoid risk of being accidentally shot. Because even this guy knew that reward hunters are fucking dickbags.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, even this guy, who was a tiger hunter, was like, I'm not one of those fucking shitheads.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you're a prolific hunter, you probably have to deal with a lot of other D-bags. And he probably has to deal with a lot of people telling him, oh, no, you're just like all these other D-bags.
And probably got shot at a lot, which is why he made this rule of, like, please withdraw everything.
I mean, reward hunting, again, it'd be really interesting to know when trophy hunting kind of gained its popularity. And I sort of feel like the early 1900s would have been a good time, especially for ivory.
Yeah, because you have
in India, right?
Because it's in India because of elephants and and rhino. Oh, I hate everyone.
Poor rhinos. Oh my God,
they're unicorns.
Shark fins. Like
You're gonna watch that documentary and be really sad, aren't you?
I already did.
Oh my God,
it was the saddest thing. And it was just like, why? First of all, like, why just the fin? Like, why not just take the whole fucking shark
like a
at that
fucking
point?
prosperous I don't know. I'm not Chinese, but I think it's like a prosperous thing. But either way,
There's just like, sometimes I just look at other cultures and I think, wow, man, you guys got it together. Look at all this great shit you're doing. And then you turn a little bit, your head the other way just a little, and you're just like, what the fuck is this? Why are you doing this? How are you capable of being so, like, above everywhere else, but, like, hey, we're just going to be complete trash over here and not evolved in any sort of way. Like, I
don't know why you're surprised. People are so shitty.
I mean, I don't know why I'm surprised either. Like, animal rights humans don't even have rights. Why am I Why am I like, oh, they treat the animals so bad. They treat their fucking people so bad.
Pretty shitty. The authorities agreed to the terms and got him to help them out. He was able to track the tigress to a quarry near the village of Champawat, which is how she got her name, the Champawat Tigress. Didn't even give her a real name because she's a woman. She doesn't need one. Or a female, sorry. The villagers had boarded up their homes and hadn't dared to leave their homes for 5 days because they were so scared of this tiger. And
Fake news.
soon after his arrival, the tigress had killed a 16-year-old girl. He recalls the track of the tigress was clearly visible. On one side of it was a great splashes of blood where the girl's head had hung down, and on the other side were trails of her feet. It's just blood everywhere.
And all that was there was just her head and her feet. So
No, I think like he's just describing where the blood
okay.
was coming from. Because I don't
Okay.
think the tigers eat. Like, I think they just kind of munch and then move on.
Yeah,
That
like
sounds
I mean, it was something has to be off of this tiger if it's just like
Well, that's what it was. They couldn't
Rabies?
catch the normal prey, so it just caught people. People are slower, and people are more likely to go into dangerous situations for like monetary gain, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
that's true.
He followed the blood and was able to take down the tigress with his rifle, ending her reign as the queen of the man-eaters, which is what I named her. He ended up ending his career as a conservationist and helped to find India's first national park. He died in 1955 at the park that he founded called Jim Corbett National Park. So he actually ended up like doing good in the end, even though like you initially hear hunter and you're like, ugh, but then, you know,
I mean,
he's a good guy.
he killed the tiger that was killing hundreds of people.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was a good guy.
He's a good guy.
It's just
And he also hated game hunters like everyone else does. So I appreciate that.
it's so shocking. It's just so shocking that she killed so many and it took so long to kill her.
I just feel like she's way more sly. And she's a cat, right? Cats are pretty sly.
Yeah, I just
Her remains showed that the upper and lower canine teeth on the right side of her mouth were broken. The upper one in the left and the lower one on the right down to the bone. The injury, according to Corbett, prevented her from hunting her natural prey, and that's why she ended up hunting people.
see. Here's the thing, though. I feel like even if she didn't chase after the antelope or her bigger prey, she's in a jungle. There's smaller prey that she probably could have.
But
I also-
it's like less. It's more work for less meat. You get a person way bigger. And I think it just seemed like back in the day, tigers just killed people because there were more tigers as well, right? It's not like
Yeah.
now where we definitely hunted them down to endangered species status, but back then,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it's also very possible that she injured her teeth in other ways.
Yeah.
That it wasn't.
It was just
like
speculation. It was a
yeah.
hunter, but she could have like, I don't
Yeah.
know.
I mean,
chomped on
losing it to the
something.
bone. I mean, she could have the tooth could have rotted.
Yeah.
And then like she chomped on
Too
something.
much candy.
Or she got like attacked, or like a lot of things could happen.
But I know for sure that if an alligator came my way and I had a shotgun, I'd shoot the alligator.
See, the idea that she was going after the humans because she couldn't go over her normal prey doesn't hold up for me because it's not like she was eating 400 humans.
No. I think she was just bored. I mean, cats are dicks too, right? Though, right? Like, you've
Yeah.
seen your own cat, and I'm assuming she's just a big cat that just likes killing things.
Yeah, maybe she had like a neurological defect or whatever that just.
We don't have a brain anymore, and I don't even know if we can actually look in animals for that kind of stuff. Do you get like how do you get like an animal that's eating people and then somehow domesticated enough to put all these things on them and?
Medication.
But wouldn't it skew the results if you're on medication?
I don't know.
None of us are
I'm not
animal scientists,
I'm
a
not
zoologist,
an zoologist. No.
a veterinarian, even a
I wouldn't
biology
even-
major. None of those things.
I wouldn't
It's
even know how to
all
do it with humans.
speculation.
I don't know. It's 400 seems excessive.
But they
And-
thought that there was another one that killed 700.
And I think that one is also excessive and probably fake news too. Like,
Even though this is like documented and people
Like, it-
wrote about
yeah,
it and the
it's-
villages talked about it.
sometimes I think about that where I'm just like, why do you think everything's fake? And it was like, they didn't just like create these stories out of nowhere. Someone clearly like
Died.
someone wrote in a journal somewhere, and then some
And died.
historian came 100 years later and was like, "Oh, look at this story."
And this was
is-"
like 1900s, so they did
Yeah.
write down things.
the whole thing just seems so bizarre.
But I mean, a lot of bizarre things. You just
Yeah.
you just told a
I
story about
know.
human combustion, but you
know.
can't imagine a tiger killing people.
No, I can't imagine tigers killing people. I'm just saying, I don't
400
think
doesn't
I don't
seem-
think that it was one tiger that killed 400 people over a span of.
Couple of years.
A couple of
I
years.
think it's very reasonable because a tiger can easily kill like two small
Only
kids.
if there's been one tiger that has killed 700 people since then. You know what I mean?
No, I mean they think they found a tiger who has killed 700 people, but maybe like this one specific tiger has been spotted in the area, and all of a sudden, as soon as it comes to this area, it just starts like the tiger starts having like killing all these people because tigers usually don't attack a ton of people. Usually it's like an opportunity, but if they're going out of their
Yeah.
way to go into your village and kill you, it's because you're their only prey. And I think that's the reason why they realized.
But then
it was
they
her.
ran her out into another area.
Yeah, because they couldn't kill her. Because
How could they not kill her? They
She was
couldn't.
elusive as fuck, and then there was other
Yeah.
hunters. There was rewards for her death, and they couldn't kill her. So obviously they needed like a big deal game hunter who knew what the fuck he was doing to go, not a game hunter, but a hunter to go and kill her.
Listen, I'm sorry that she died. She clearly was having a bad time, and those humans needed to just GTFO her hunting ground.
Yeah.
Like,
But aren't-
you relocate? She was probably there first, actually, because she clearly was.
Anyways, thanks for listening to our podcast, and don't die before the next episode.
Yes. Please don't die before our next episode.
So you can listen to what we're going to talk about next time.